Hey folks, thanks for tuning into another video. Today's going to be a bit different. We're going to walk you through what to look out for when you're trying to purchase a property, particularly an investment property, in many of the municipalities in southwestern Ontario. Now, for today's video, we're going to focus on Barrie, Ontario, which is a wonderful place to invest, great fundamentals. We'd highly recommend it. The reason we're focusing on Barrie is we have a property there. We've done a lot of research and work there. We've called the city. We know people by name there at this stage. So I'm very familiar with the kinds of things available in terms of resources and how to find information. But all this kind of stuff is available in many, if not all, the municipalities in southwestern Ontario. It just might be slightly different names. But if you call the city, you go on the websites, you can find this info. One word of caution. If you're going to call the city about this information, you want to call back maybe a second time at least. You do not want your investment to come down to the opinion or professional opinion of someone over the phone. You don't know if they're new to the city or that department. Maybe they got transferred over. You might not, or they might not know exactly the details you're looking for, and they might speculate or they might misunderstand the question. You really want to make sure you get the actual facts, because once you buy that property, you're locked in, and their opinion or their determination of whether something's all right or not, it's up to you to double check. Your realtor should, and you should work with an investor-friendly realtor for that and many other reasons. But just know that it's your finances and your property at the end of the day. So it really is up to you to do the extra due diligence, irregardless of how much you believe in your realtor. So let's get started. First thing I look at when I'm looking at a potential property is a conservation authority. Many cities in southwestern Ontario will have some form of control regarding building near streams or forests or whatever. The property I've punched in here, 20 Francis Street North, this is actually the property that we almost got screwed on, and I'll show you why. So we come down here, pops up on the left, you click it, and then it goes to the property line. Now you'll notice the back part of this property is this kind of greenish yellow. This tells me this is under conservation area control, and you're not allowed to build on that because you can see this blue line here. This is a stream that runs in the back of the property. So we actually bid on this property before we actually knew about this, before a realtor knew about this. It's a good thing we lost. Let's just put it that way, because we wanted to build a garden suite. It's a 200-foot deep lot, wonderful size for a garden suite. We would have bought the house, and then, to be honest, I don't know what we would have done. We probably would have pivoted to a flip. It would have been a negative cash flow situation for renovating the basement, creating a duplex. It wouldn't have cash flowed as a single family home. Let's just say it's a good thing we didn't get it for this specific reason. And if I zoom out a bit here, you can see it's a bit of buffering. It's a bit slow of a system, but you can see all of the different conservation lines or streams that you're not allowed to build on. And that's really, really important, especially if your strategy is something like a garden suite, if you want to do an addition, or maybe your strategy is to add an addition down the road. You'll notice this empty space. This is outside of the city of Barrie's boundaries. So you need to go to the next municipality or the next authority in order to find information for them. So just be super, super careful about where you're building specific to the actual property, because across the street didn't have this control, but our side of the street did. It's a good thing we lost. And I've actually pivoted away from interest in other properties because of this website. And again, you can check out the URL here in order to find it specifically for Barrie. Most other municipalities will have something similar. So the first thing I look for is the Conservation Authority. The second thing I look for is what's called site plan control. Now, site plan control basically means there's extra hoops you have to jump through in order to do something different with the property than what it's currently being used for. Whether it's adding units, so density issues, whether it's adding additions, you're increasing the footprint of the property, building garden suites. I know one property we inquired about site plan control. They said you cannot build a garden suite on it. It's not in the conservation area zone, but you still can't do it because they had certain restrictions in that particular area. So you got to be super careful. So if I come down to the bottom here and I type in the same address, it pops me over and I notice there's no blue. The blue up here tells me that this is site plan controlled. This is the extra set of hoops I have to jump through. This property is not site plan controlled. And from an investor standpoint, that's good. You can see all the areas around these few blocks are, and for whatever reason, these are not. So these would be, in better shape for an investment. Again, you got to go through all these different steps, but you want to check that. I know of an investor, they bought a really great property, so they thought it's site plan control. They had no idea until they applied for the building permit to build a garden suite, and they were told you can't do it. Basically, because of whatever restrictions that particular site plan control had, they weren't able to do it, and now they got to pivot, and they're sort of pulling their hair out a little bit. So just be really, really careful with that. The next one I'm going to talk about, this isn't as much or as relevant for the building of it or the footprint of the property. This is more of if you want to increase density of the property, most municipalities will require that you increase the size of the water main coming into the house. A lot of the properties that a lot of investors in southwestern Ontario are burring or renovating are 1950s, 60s, 70s bungalows, and they were usually built with somewhere along the lines of, again, depending on the municipality, about a half-inch water line coming into the property. And a lot of municipalities now want a 3/4 inch line for 3 or more units. So you're going to have to get into the main line, dig up your front lawn potentially, and tap in with a bigger line and fix it. And it can be very expensive. One thing that might add to that expense is where the water line is based. So here you can see the property again. This blue is the water line of that street. And you can see it's across the actual roadway from the property that we were interested in. The reason that's relevant is because they're going to have to either dig up, which they don't really have to do anymore. They can sort of bore underneath the road, but potentially, depending on the situation, you might have to dig up the road. It could be very, very expensive. We've gotten quotes anywhere between $5,000 and $15,000 or additional expense, not just connecting the water line, but an additional expense to connect the water line because it's located across the street. So just be really careful. You want to build this into your budget. If you're looking at a property in this situation where you have to spend that extra money, you don't have a choice. In order to legalize it properly, you have to have the proper water levels coming in. So just be wary of that. Most municipalities have some sort of map like this. Barrie's actually really good, and we think they're one of the front runners in terms of information for the public. Accessible information, I should probably say. And you can see they have all the water mains everywhere within the municipality. So it makes it nice and easy to tell. Again, depending on the situation, it'll be a bit different, but we usually try and budget between $7,000 to $12,000 to connect the water main if it's across the street, which is on top of the actual connection fee and digging up your front lawn and all the stuff that goes into it. So just be wary of that. It could really affect your budget depending on the property and depending how tight you are. The last thing we look at is tax parcels. And this is basically a way of saying the borders or boundaries of the property. So if I punch in the address again here, it brings me in. Now blue in this case, this is not site plan control like the last one. This just gives me the boundary, the official boundary of the property. The reason I do this is because a lot of times if you're adding units, you need to add parking. Many municipalities will not allow additional density without additional parking to accompany that density. And the ratio or rate of parking to units or dwellings will vary. But just keep in mind that parking is super important. And this should be part of your initial inspection when thinking about putting an offer on a property. So in this case, there are no trees that are located in front of the property on the white, which would be city property. If a tree was located in the blue, that would be or better, I guess is the best way to say it, because you can take it down in most cases without consulting the city because it's on your property. So as an example, if we look at the property across the street, you can see there's a tree on the white part. This tells me that this is city property. And because of that, it's almost impossible to get it cut down. So if the driveway is located beside it, you will not be able to widen the driveway if the tree or the tree roots are in danger. So what I would do in this case is I'd pop over to Google Maps, one of your best friends in your search for properties. Come down. There's the original one. So I know we're looking at the one across the street, 17 here. And then I'll just take the little person, drop it down. And then this is the property that we looked at with the tree on city property. Now, if I go back here, looks like it's kind of near the corner, but maybe a bit in. So it might be a bit tough to tell. I would really strongly guess this is the one they're referring to. Most of the time, it'll be really blatantly easy in terms of identifying which one it is. This one's super thick and tall, and this one's a bit skinnier. So maybe this one wasn't even there when the original tax parcel was done. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that this is the tree that is on city property that was on the tax parcel, the one right here. So assuming that's the one, this does not interfere with anything to do with parking. Like, you should be able to widen the driveway. Let's say you wanted to do an up and down duplex in the main house, convert this to a garden suite, and then you want at least 3 parking spots. Some people would say, okay, one tenant can park here, one tenant can park there, and one can park behind them. You're just asking for trouble if you're doing that. Anytime the tenants have to coordinate with each other or get a hold of each other in order to get out, it's just a bad idea. I would not recommend that whatsoever. Best case scenario, you want to do 3 wide so that not only do they have their own access in and out, but potentially, depending on the depth of the driveway, you could have 1 car in front and 1 car behind for each unit, because 2 parking spots per unit is much more desirable for a lot of people. It is a must for a lot of people, depending on the situation. So you could potentially get more rent for having 2 spots per unit. In this case, if this tree here was the one on city property, just for argument's sake, you might have trouble widening the driveway because they won't let you come right beside it. You're going to have to give a bit of room for the roots. So you might not be able to get this 3 wide, and then that's going to build into your consideration about whether the property's worth it or not. If this garage wasn't here and you could extend the driveway lengthwise, maybe you could do it with a parallel park in front of each other. It's better than having them directly behind with the only access being behind, but still not super desirable. You just don't want the tenants bugging each other or getting into fights over little things like that. So in this case, it looks like this is the tree on city property. If I'm able to remove this one, I wanted to put 3 units here. I think this would be a good candidate in terms of parking, and there's no trees getting in the way. These are some of the considerations we take into account. Of course, cash flow, what rents you can get, other factors like that come into play. And just as a refresher, conservation authority about whether you're able to build on the land. Site plan control is more about you're able to build, but only certain things on the land. Water main goes into your budget about whether you have to spend the extra cash to tap into it. And then tax parcels is mainly concerned with parking and the location of trees to widen driveways. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, leave some comments down below. We'd love to help out. This is something we feel really passionate about. Almost, like I said, got super screwed over by having a realtor who didn't know what they were doing. And we don't want anyone to be in that situation. It's just not a great thing if you have, your financial future or your family's future on the line by taking that chance, taking action, which is a great thing. And then you get screwed because someone didn't tell you or you didn't know the information. So hopefully this helps. If you have any more information, please reach out. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. For more information about how real estate can help you have peace of mind about your retirement, build generational wealth, and take control of your financial future, click the like button below and subscribe to the Open Book Investors YouTube channel. More resources and ways to get in touch are in the description below.